Notice it is not equal to 0, so we have to make it equal to 0. Let's go to look more. 150. All right. So let's do that. So to make it 0, make it equal to 0, I'm going to cancel the right side. So to do that, I'm going to minus 4x and plus 7. But also I have to do it on the left side too. Minus 4x and plus 7. All right. Now the right side, that becomes 0. That's canceled. And so we have equal to 0. Now the left side is what a lot of kids struggle on. All they see is a bunch of terms and don't know what to do. Okay. Let's take each term on the left side. We have one x squared term. That's all we have. So it goes by itself, 1x squared. We have one x term by itself, which is a minus 4x. And then we have two constant, the 10 and the plus 7, negative 10 and plus 7. Combine those two, that gives me negative 3. And that's equal to 0. So let's factor this now. So remember, I showed you the slide and divide. So I'm going to take the coefficient 4. I'm going to slide to the right and multiply the constant c. When I do that, I get negative 12. So I'm going to rewrite the equation now as x squared minus 4x minus 12 is equal to 0. So that's like a new equation now where the coefficient of the x squared is 1. And so now I'm going to find the factors of 12. That's going to give me 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So which pair am I going to use? When I add them, it gives me negative 4. But when I multiply them, it gives me negative 12. Well, if I make the 6 negative, right, and I add now, that gives me negative 4, right? And when I multiply it, that gives me negative 12. So I'm going to have my factors are going to be x plus 2 and x minus 6 equals 0. Now, this is the divide piece now. Because I multiplied by 4 in the beginning, I'm going to divide by 4 now. So divide this by 4, that by 4. Now, if you notice now, when I divide by 4, I have a fraction. I'm going to have a decimal. That's not what I want. So I'm going to slide the 4 up and multiply the x. And so that's going to give me, let's see, that's going to give me 4x plus 2 as one factor, and the other one is going to be 4x minus 6 as the other factor equal to 0. And then we said each fact, this is where a lot of kids struggle to. You got to set each factor to 0. 4x plus 2 equal to 0, and 4x minus 6 equal to 0. All right. And then solve for x, minus 2 on both sides. That gives me 4x is equal to negative 2. Divide by 4 now. X is equal to negative 2 over 4, which is just negative 1/2. Other side, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That gives me 4x is equal to 6. Divide by 4 now. That gives me x equal to 6 over 4, which is just 3 over 2. All right. So those are your factors right here. All right, let's jump into today's lesson. That's factoring binomials. When we factor binomials, there are two binomials you're going to come across. One is a difference of squares, and the other one we have to use GCF to factor, the greatest common factor. Let's do it. I'm going to put them side by side so you can see the difference. I'm going to insert a new page. All right, let's bring it up here. And so let me slide this over to the right a little bit. So let's look at the binomial here. I'm going to have, say, x squared minus 9. And the other binomial I'm going to have is x squared plus 7x. Two binomial, right? But the way we approach the factoring them is different. The one on the left side is called the difference of squares. Why difference of squares? Well, if you notice now, each term is a perfect square. 9 is a perfect square because 9 is 3 squared, and x squared is just x squared. Squares and the minus sign, the difference of, that's why it's called the difference of squares. And there's an easy way to factor these right here, a very easy way. there's a formula that goes like this. I'm sure you've seen it in Algebra 1. A squared minus B squared is, when you factor it, is just equal to, let me just put it down here, just equal to, right, the factors, A and B, one gets a minus sign, one gets a plus sign. And that's how you factor it. That's the formula. So let's look at factoring x squared minus 9 now. I'm going to go ahead and erase this. I'm sorry, I'm going to erase this for a second. All right. So what I want you to do, until you get really good at this, what I want you to do is this. So once you realize you have a difference of squares, let's put a minus sign here. Once you realize that, take the square root of both terms. All right. The radical sign, right, cuts the 2 in half. Or we like to say the radical sign cancels the power. It's the opposite. Just like positive is opposite of negative, right? The radical cancels the 2, and you're just left with x. Square root of 9 is 3. So, and then your factors are going to be, you're going to have x and 3 in both factors. X and 3, and then one gets a minus sign, one gets a plus sign, equals to 0. Okay? And then let's solve for x. I'm going to have x minus 3 is equal to 0. X plus 3 is equal to 0. And so add 3 on both sides, x equals 3. Minus 3 on both sides, x equals negative 3. All right? So these are the factors right here. These are the factors and the solutions. Okay? Now, so this is on the left side, difference of squares. Let's look at how we approach the one on the right. Okay, so the one on the right, you notice now, this term right here, this term is not a perfect square. It is not. So what we'll have to do now is we got to find the greatest common factor. So we'll look at x squared and 7x and see what is the common factor in both terms. And if you notice, right, we have an x here and an x squared. So x, the term x, now x squared, x is the highest common factor. So I'm going to have one factor, which is x, and I need to find the other factor. Now, how do I find the other factor that goes in here? Well, what I want you to do is this. Again, there are different ways to do this part, but I'm going to show you a very easy way to do it. I'm going to erase this for a second. I'm going to erase this. Okay. All right. So we know one factor is going to be x, right? And we need to find the other factor. How do we find this factor that goes inside here? Well, let's do this. Divide each term by x squared. I'm sorry, by x. Right? By the GCF, the greatest common factor. X squared divided by x is x. And 7x divided by plus 7x divided by x is 7. That goes away. And remember, this is a 1. When you divide with exponents, you subtract. 2 minus 1 is 1. Give you x to the 1 power. Right? Or just x. And so this is the other factor, right? X plus 7. And that goes inside here, x plus 7. And that is equal to 0. Okay? And so let me get some more space now. So my factors are x times x plus 7 is equal to 0. Let me erase this now. So those are my factors. And if you want to find the x value, you set each factor to 0. X is equal to 0. That's already solved. And then we have x plus 7 equals 0 minus 7 on both sides. I get x equals negative 7. So those are the solution. X solution. All right. So look, see two binomials, different ways of getting factors. So let's jump into some more examples of the different squares. Okay. So again, first step, you're going to take the square root of each term. The number, take the square root, and the variable, cut the exponent in half. Cut the exponent in half. All right. It cuts the exponent in half. So here we go. So we're going to take the square root of x squared. Square root of 36 Again, remember the square root, it cuts the exponent in half. So this is a 2, it becomes x to the 1 or just x. Square root of 36 is 6. All right, and so my factors now, let me make it smaller. So my factors are just going to be x and 6, x and 6. One gets a plus sign, one gets a minus sign, and that is equal to 0. So those are the factors. All right. Okay, let me make sure it says find the factors, right? To find the square root of, okay. So we're not solving for x, all right? If they ask you to find a solution now, then you set each factor to 0. But all it asks for find the factor, right? As the product of two binomials. All right. So there you go. All right, number 2. Let's look at number 2 again. I'm going to take the square root of the x term. Square root of 25. No, square root of 4x squared is just 2x. Square root of 25 is 5. So now I'm going to have my factor is going to be 2 factors, 2x and 5, 2x and 5. One gets a plus sign, one gets a minus sign, and that is equal to 0. Good. All right. Okay. I believe you can do number 3 and number 8. Not going to do all of them, right? I think you kind of get the picture. Let's do let's do 6, number 6. Number 6. I'm going to do number 6 and number 7. So number 6, okay, let's do this one here. Take the square root of that. Square root of 169 is 13, right? So this will give me 13x. Square root of 121 is 11. So my factors are going to be 13x and 11. 13x and 11. One gets a plus sign, one gets a minus sign, and that is equal to 0. Good. And then number 7 now. If you notice number 7, this is not a difference of square. A difference means minus. This is a plus sign. So there's no solution, and there's no solution to this. And I'll explain this in class why it's no solution. All right, so let's go over to greatest common factor. Real quick, let's multiply these. Again, this is distribution. All right, distribution. 2x times 3x. You multiply the coefficient, right? It's multiplied. So 2 times 3 is 6, and x times x is x squared. 2 times 4 is 8. That gives it minus 8x. And then here, x times x squared is x cubed, and x times 3 is 3x. All right. So now, let's look at number 8 now. We've got to find the greatest common factor. So we're going to look at the coefficient, the number part first, and then look at the variable. All right. So let's look at 8 and 24. What is the highest common factor? What is the GCF between 8 and 24? Okay, that's 8. Good. Now look at it. Look at the variable now. We have a squared and a. All right. The GCF between a squared and a is a. So my GCF is going to be 8a. So that is one of the factors. Now I've got to find the other factor. So remember now, my answer is going to be 8a. I've got to find the other factor that goes here. How do I do that? Now I'm going to divide each term by 8a now. I'm going to divide this by 8a and this by 8a. Okay, so this gives me, that cancels out. I'm just left with a squared divided by a is just a, plus 24 divided by 8 is 3, and the 8 cancels out. So I'm just left with a plus 3. So the other factor is a plus 3, and that is equal to 0. All right. C is pretty easy. I'm going to okay, I'll do C, and then I'm gonna have you do 3 by itself. Okay, look at C. All right. We have a 5 here and a 1, so the highest common factor is just 1, right? And then for c squared and c, the highest common factor is c. So c is one of the factors. I've got to find the other factor that goes inside the parentheses. All right. And then to do that, I'm going to divide each term by c now. Divided by the greatest common factor. C squared divided by c is just c. All right. Plus 5c divided by c is just 5. So c plus 5 is equal to 0. All right, guys. Let's see. Number 5. Okay. I believe you can do number 3 and number. Let's look at number 8. Number 4 is interesting. Let's see. Factor O. 2. Okay, yeah. Number 4 is interesting. Sometimes it looks like this is a we're going to use a GCF, which we are, but embedded in this problem, we're going to see how when I factor out a number, you're going to see what happens, right? So let's go to number 8. I'm sorry, number 4. What is the GCF here? Okay, there's an x squared term and no x over here, so x is not going to be part of GCF. So we're looking at 8 and 18 now. What is my highest common factor here? Right? If you notice now, the highest common factor is 2, right? 2. So I'm going to factor out 2. So the GCF is going to be 2. All right? So I'm going to divide each term now. I need to find what goes here. Divide each term by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2. Now, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I'm left with 4x squared minus 18 divided by 2 is 9. And that is equal to 0. Now, look at that. What do we have there? We have 4x squared minus 9. That is a difference of squares. All right. So I can continue solving this now, just like we did in the earlier. All right, so I'm going to take the square root. I'm going to take the square root of the 4x squared, the square root of the 9. That's going to give me 2x here, and that's going to give me 3. All right, so my factors now, right, I'm going to get 2x and 3, 2x and 3. One gets a plus sign, one gets a minus sign. But don't forget, you got to bring down this 2, and that 2 goes right there. That's a very interesting one. Okay, try, I'm going to have you try number 5 on your own, all right? Pretty straightforward there. So that's today's lesson, guys. Again, the key is just practice some of these until you get good at it, okay?